Welcome to How the Song Came to Be, where soulful songwriters share the stories behind their songs, as well as tools and creative practices you can use to bring your best songs or other creative works to life. I'm Anneheaton, your host.
I think this in terms of life in general, but also in thinking about songs, I think if you keep your ears open and you keep your heart open, I think the ideas and the inspiration shows up in front of you.
Welcome, songwriters, to How the Song Came to Be. I'm Anneheaton. I'm a singer-songwriter, the founder of Soul Song School, and your host today. And we're in for a great treat. We have Cary Cooper here today, who is an amazing singer-songwriter, an educator, and a mom. And I'm a big fan. Her songs are sometimes like heart-wrenching and devastating love songs, and other times very heartwarming and hopeful and positive, and sometimes all wrapped into one. I'm a huge fan. She's been called the Anne Lamott of songwriting. She's a winner of the Caryville Folk Festival's New Folk Competition, as well as I think placing second and third in Rocky Mountain Folk Festival and Telluride. She teaches songwriting. She has taught songwriting at Interlochen, and also is the full-time music, choir, and songwriting teacher at the Franklin School of Innovation. Did I get that right? Yeah. And Cary's basically like the ninja of getting songwriters to write, even when they're maybe not feeling like in the zone or feeling like writing. She has all sorts of tips and ways in so that songwriters end up writing stuff they maybe didn't even expect to. And I've seen her magic in action, and I'm so excited to welcome you here today. Thank you, Cary.
Thank you for having me. This is fun.
Yeah, this is so fun. And also, just so I don't forget, if you want to hear Cary's music and find out more about her, you can go to her website at carycooper.com, which I'll put in the show notes. So before we dive into the nitty-gritty of some of the creativity tips or ways in to writing when maybe you don't feel like it, I would love to hear your story of how you got on this songwriting path, how you became a songwriter, why, was there a call, just how that unfolded.
Okay. Well, there was definitely a call, and it was actually kind of put to me by a therapist when I was 37 years old and in a really unhappy marriage. And she looked me straight in the eye, kind of grabbed me by the shoulders and said, "I'm afraid if you don't find something that makes you happy outside of this marriage, you're going to die." And she said, "I don't mean emotionally or spiritually." She said, "I think not before too long, you're going to keel over and be dead." And it was such a startling thing to hear that I decided I was going to take it really seriously. And so I kind of walked around in a fog for about 2 weeks, just trying to get back in touch with the core of me and figuring out what that might be, what would make me happy. And I really didn't have a clue. I was pretty out of touch as a young mom, and had thrown all my energy into my first child. And I was pretty clueless as to what really made me tick at that point. But a friend kind of randomly invited me to go to a house concert, which I didn't even know what a house concert was, and kind of thought, well, maybe it's some type of religious cult. I didn't have a clue. And so I was really leery about showing up at a stranger's living room to hear some music. But I decided to go at the last minute and sat there, and maybe on the second row, and about 3 songs in, I was just tears pouring down my face. And it felt like a lightning strike moment where I thought, this would make me happy. This is exactly what would make me happy. And I had written some songs back in college, just kind of for fun, and never showed them to anybody, but really loved doing it. And so the minute I left that house concert, I went home and pulled out that old journal that had those songs in it, and immediately wrote 3 songs that week. And the biggest hindrance to me at that point was that I didn't play an instrument. I'd played piano as a kid, but had never picked up a guitar, never picked up any other kind of instrument, and had no way of accompanying myself. And so I went to my brother's house, where I knew he had an old beater guitar in the back of his closet, and asked if I could borrow it, and learned 4 chords, and was kind of off on a journey at that point.
That is so amazing. When you first started telling the story, I got chills all over my head, and I feel like I maybe even have heard that story before, but I guess I just forgot it until now. But I just want to highlight some of what you just said. Like, first of all, I love that you were, there are some people out there that I've heard say like, oh, I can't like start now, or like it's too late, or, I'm too old or something. And not that 37 is old, but like, it's just like you got this call, and you didn't start writing songs until you were 37 or 38, right?
Yep.
That's super inspiring.
Well, thank you. Well, it was, for me, it felt, I really took my therapist seriously, and it felt like a matter of life or death to find something that was going to change my path. And it was really interesting, because when the first songs that I wrote, it was almost as if they were an outlet to get to a part of the truth about me and my life at that point that I wasn't willing or able to really speak out loud, just in a conversation. But through a song, I could get there. And that immediately became very empowering to me. And within 3 months of starting the songwriting process, I was sitting down with the now ex, who I was in the unhappy marriage with, and just said, look, things are changing. I'm changing. I found something that really makes me happy, and I'd like for you to come along on this, journey, if you will. And he wasn't really in a place to be willing or wanting to do that. And so but I had enough power at that point, and enough strength from just writing songs to get that ball rolling and do what I needed to do for me.
I love that. This is like total gold. I can really relate to the wanting to connect to the core of you, and feeling like you could get at a truth through songwriting that you couldn't do in any other way. I know that I had a little bit of a similar experience going to a Tori Amos concert when I lived in New York, and I remember just sobbing at that concert, and I couldn't really even figure out why. And when I actually left early because I couldn't stop crying. And then on the way home, I'm like, I think I know why. It's because I'm meant to be doing that, and I'm not yet. And I don't know what I'm waiting for. And I always felt like we're having this conversation. It's a heart to heart. I feel like we can get pretty close to the truth. But I often felt like in conversations with people, I was sort of approximating the truth. You're talking, and I never felt like I was quite saying what I meant, even though I was trying. And then as soon as I started songwriting, I'd finish a song and be like, oh, no, this is actually what I mean, Yeah. But yeah, I just want to kind of underscore what you said about songwriting as a way to get in the touch with the truth of who you are. And then also, what a great tool it seems like it then helped you to take action in your life that actually improved your life, like scary action, like having that conversation with your ex.
Yeah.
Saying, are you willing to come along for this new? And that's so, wow. Oh, and I wanted to say one other thing that was just like how the call came in like 2 parts. Like, you had the therapist saying, like, inviting you to find something that you loved. And then you had this other friend. Like, I feel like life is like this. Say, oh, come to this house concert. That's great. Yeah.
I think, I think this in terms of life in general, but also in thinking about songs, I think if you keep your ears open and you keep your heart open, I think the ideas and the inspiration shows up in front of you. A lot of times it's there, and we're just not paying attention enough to see it or to hear it. And so I think that for me, when the therapist said that, I became very aware of every little thing that was put in front of me until I hit on the thing that felt like, yeah, this is it. And for me, whenever I'm writing a song, I tend to kind of do the same thing. I'm hyper aware of my surroundings, of conversations that I have, of conversations I overhear. And a lot of times I'll hear something that just sparks an idea, and I think, you got to jump on this now.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, I love that. It's like the invitation to pay attention more closely.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. Well, let's talk about that then a little more, because thinking about the songwriters who might be listening, and I know you, and I mean, it's not like I see you every day, but I know you as someone who writes pretty regularly and is in the flow. And it sounds like one of the ways you do that is by paying attention to what's going on around you. So, two of the things I hear most often from songwriters, one is I start songs but I don't finish them, and how do I write like when I don't feel in the mood? Like I get started but then I don't. And so I'm wondering, kind of like jumping off of that first point you said about paying attention, is what are some of the ways that you do that in your life that maybe the songwriters listening can take into their wheelhouse and try out?
Okay. Well, I think for me, some things that work, something I've already mentioned is I really pay attention to conversations. And I've found a lot of times in speaking to somebody else, they may say something in a way that I find to be particularly poetic or just said in a new, fresh way. And I take those opportunities to like steal ideas and to I write down things all the time. I have a constant file going of just lines and thoughts and ideas for songs. And I think that doing that, having that as a practice, keeps me in that inspirational flow of wanting to write. And I think that I know when I first started writing, all of my songs were very therapeutic in nature. They were serving a purpose for me. They were allowing a lot of that stuff to come out that I had been holding on to for years. But when I kind of moved past that part, it became evident to me that in order to keep writing, I was going to have to figure out a way to do it when I didn't feel inspired as well. And I don't remember who said it, but there was a little quote that I read one time that said, the way to get better as a writer is to write. And I've really taken that to heart, I think, and choose every opportunity when there's nothing going on, even when maybe I want to be doing something else or should be doing something else at certain points. If I'm feeling that urge, even if I don't have a particular idea already set aside, I will set aside some time to just play around with an idea and to try writing. And one of the things that I did a few years ago that really helped to keep me going and to keep me inspired was I started a group for women called Real Women, Real Songs. And it was an online thing with the first year it had 14 women, the second year it had 21 women. And I kind of handpicked a lot of them. People that either inspired me or people that I knew were new at it and just really gung-ho about it. But I chose the women, and then for an entire year, every week I would give a prompt, and each woman would write a song based on that prompt and then would post the songs to Facebook and YouTube. And the purpose for posting them was not to say, look, I just wrote this amazing song, but more to share the creative process with people and hopefully to inspire other people, whether their path was songwriting or visual art or just whatever way they wanted to be creative. And in sharing, just here's a baby song I just wrote, and maybe it'll change later, maybe it won't, but just putting it out there and kind of being raw and vulnerable about it. And it was a really amazing project. I think we totaled up the number of songs that were written in those 2 years, and it was like over 2,000. So,
oh my goodness, that's amazing. Wow.
Pretty amazing. Yeah.
I love that because you were embracing the process. It wasn't like you
right.
have this finished product. And so you had like it was due by a certain time, right? So wherever you were with it went up?
Yeah. I mean, everybody had a particular day of the week that they were supposed to post. And so you kind of had a deadline knowing, okay, I have to have a song on Monday.
Yeah.
And
My God,
and sometimes, sometimes people posted unfinished songs, just things that were in the works. And then other times it was, the full thing. And some were definitely keepers and some were definitely not, but that was part of it too.
We need that. Like I definitely believe that some songs maybe are not ready. Like some songs will take me like 3 years to write. I'll work on them and then they'll sort of marinate. And then other songs I write in a day. So I don't feel like all songs benefit from time pressure, but certainly like on songwriter retreats when we have a weekend to write something or a day to write something, like that's how a lot of songs get written. And having that, like, it's like a positive pressure. Like, I'm going to share this with my friends and I can't wait to connect with them about what I'm feeling or thinking or about the story is so much more motivating than, okay, I'm just working on this like kind of by myself and no one really even knows. But I want to just circle back for a second and just highlight to make sure people are getting some of them. I write them down because I can't always remember the amazing things. But like, so one thing that you're doing to keep writing is observing. You're like observing everyday life and you're listening to conversations and writing them down. So you're like carrying a little notebook? So if you're at school and you hear something, are you jotting it down right then in the moment?
I write them and I have a little file under notes in my iPhone, and that's pretty much become my little notebook. So I just keep a continual file going of ideas. And
cool. And then when you write, you say when nothing's going on or whatever. So you don't like have a set time where you wake up every morning and write. You just sort of wait.
Yeah. I think I probably did that more before I was teaching school full time, like when I was still just pretty much a touring songwriter. I had more free time during the day to, especially like when I was at home and my kids were at school, I had hours during the day where I could actually sit down and focus on, I want to write a song today, or I want to write something. But now that I'm working full time, my time is a little more limited, so I have to create those opportunities. So for me now, it's balancing work with a new relationship and trying to devote time to both of those things, but also taking the time for myself to write. And so while I don't do it, I don't have like what I would call a daily practice. I would say that I'm daily writing something. Whether it's on my lunch break or, maybe I get up an hour early just because I feel the need to do it. Or maybe it's in the evening, before I'm going to bed.
Right. So it's ongoing. It's not like you're waiting to have a whole day or you're waiting to have 3 hours. It's just it's woven into your life, even though it's not awesome.
And that's one of the reasons why I love teaching, because it keeps me focused on the subject matter, and it creates, I think that in and of itself creates more opportunities for making writing happen. So that's just a good way I've been able to do it. I know that teaching's not for everybody, but that's definitely been a benefit or a bonus for me in teaching.
Yeah. Cool. This is so great. I love it. So I know that at some point you're going to maybe play us a song. I think one other thing I want to ask you about before we jump into that is when you were talking about your journey of becoming a songwriter and how actually the songwriting made you feel stronger. I just wanted to talk about like fear for a second. Was there any fear in doing that, or did the actual act of songwriting alleviate some of your fear and make it easier for you to move forward?
Well, there was definitely fear. And my fear, the reason why I didn't do it until I was 37 was in college when I did write a few songs. I had a roommate. Like I went to college on a dance scholarship. My roommate was a piano performance major, but she was also a performer and a songwriter. And when we were rooming together and I started secretly writing songs in my journal, I never wanted to share them because I was afraid of being compared to her. I was afraid of her thinking I wanted in on her deal, or just all of those things. And at that point in time, I wasn't. I guess my own personal confidence level was not that high, and so for years it was just kind of like the secret wish or secret dream for me. And then I kind of buried it so deep that I forgot about it for a long, long time. Mm. And something you said about when you went to the concert and cried and just wasn't even sure why. I remember being at an event with, it was like a woman's tea or something, and they had some women that got up and did like a little entertainment act in the middle and were singing, and I remember feeling so envious of them and like, why do I not do things like this? Or why, and just it was kind of eating away at me. And that was probably a few months before I went to the house concert. And so I feel like this path was always kind of was underground until I brought it to the surface. But it was always there. And I think that's probably true for a lot of people. I remember reading in, I think it was the Artist's Way book, Julia Cameron's book, talking about whenever you feel jealous of someone else, it's probably because there's some unspoken desire in you to do something similar. Yeah. And I really resonated with that when I heard it, because I felt it. And now I forgot what your original question was.
I don't even know what it was, but you're reminding me that I feel like it was like, it's like this with so many things, but the simplest way to put it is that for me, like, the pain of not writing songs had to outweigh the fear of me being bad at it. Because I didn't really start that early on either. Or actually, I wrote a song when I was like 4 years old in like a monastery, and I sang it on circle time. I don't know if I told you this before. And the lady was like, could someone please sing a song we all know? After I was done, I sang a song about like cotton candy and ballet or something, like my favorite things at 4. And she sort of like named me, and then I was basically like, oh, and then I was like done till I was 26. And then like at 26, I was like, oh, maybe it's safe enough to come out. But wow. But I wasn't conscious of that. But yeah,
fear. But you were talking about fear, and I remember like after I'd written 3 or 4 songs, I felt so excited and so empowered that I actually called my old college roommate who was living in Boston at the time and said, I have to come visit you, and went to see her and just kind of came out as a songwriter to her and said, I think I'm doing this. I think I'm going to pursue this now. And, she was completely supportive, and said, I can't believe I wanted to tell you that years ago. And, but at that point, my desire to do it was so much greater than any fear that I had, that I was able to kind of push past it. Because there was definitely still fear. Yeah. Fear of failing, fear of, have I screwed up my whole life? Just all kinds of fear. Yeah. Will I be good at this?
Yeah, and another one I hear is like, who am I to be doing this? Like, who am I to be writing songs? And then, of course, it's that same old, like, who are you to not be? Like, if you want to and you desire, like, you must have something to say and share. And, okay, so I could talk to you for like 3 hours, or 5 or 7. I want to honor all the ways that songs come to be, because I feel like it's really important to get these tips, like, like you have a regular writing practice, like you're observing daily life. You're not waiting for some major thing to happen. You're paying attention to everything, playing the role of the witness. And, you use songwriting as like a lifeline for your own moving forward in your life. But I want to also honor all the ways that, like, every song that comes can be so different. Like, for me, it may be like I'm out taking a walk in nature, or it may be someone gives me a writing assignment. And so what I'm going to invite all the songwriters to do on this show is share with us a story of a song that sort of had a magical or interesting or just, something that we would like to hear the meat of how it came to be, and then play that song for us. So would you be willing to do that?
Sure. Well, I was thinking about what song to play, and I thought, I've written some that definitely felt inspired and wrote them quickly, and, finished it thinking, wow, that doesn't feel like it came from me. And so I've definitely had those experiences. And then I've also written where I'm just pushing through to get to the end of a song because I sat down and committed to writing it. And that's a completely different process and a different feeling. And so I'm going to play not a new song, but one that I wrote probably 5 or 6 years ago. And at the time, I was having a weekly songwriting group that met at my house on Monday nights. And the whole idea of the group was to give feedback to each other on new things we were working on. So everybody was supposed to show up with something new each Monday. And whether it was just
a second, because this is the second time this has come up. Community. So you have an online songwriters group which helped you write, and then you had a meeting at your house. Okay, go ahead.
And that was definitely just a big kick in the butt to keep going every week and to have something out on the calendar like, oh, this deadline is kind of sitting out there. And so I was constantly during the week thinking about, what do I want to write this week? What am I going to, focus on? But definitely just putting into practice the act of writing. And so on a particular Monday, it was probably about 5 in the afternoon, and I hadn't had time, or I hadn't really figured out what I was going to write about. And the group was going to be at my house at 7. And so I was a little freaked out, and I went to my favorite place to think in the house, which was my bathroom. And I was sitting in the bathroom with the door locked and trying to be quiet so my girls didn't know I had escaped into the bathroom. And I had a book on my shelf in the bathroom that was the book Water for Elephants. Somebody had passed it on to me after they read it. And so I just pulled it down off the shelf kind of randomly and stared at the cover, which was like a red and black circus tent. And so when I was thinking about what to write, I thought, well, maybe you could write a song about the circus. And then I was thinking, well, what would I want to write about the circus? What could I say that hasn't already been said? And so I just kind of started this little story in my brain, and ended up leaving the bathroom and going for a walk with my dog. And by the time I got home from the walk, I had all the lyrics completely, like I was having to say them over and over in my head because I didn't want to forget anything. But I had the lyrics for the song when I got home, and then maybe 15 minutes before the group got there, I had time to sit down and figure out the chords on the guitar or on the ukulele, because I had the melody kind of running through my head. And so that's how this little song came to be.
Great.
Let me see if, hang on, my ukulele, I just put new strings on it recently, and it's kind of, I have to tune it a lot. So give me just 1 second. So this song is called Suzanne. And that was the last piece of the song to come was giving the character a name. And so, but she's me. Okay, here we go. Suzanne ran away with the circus when she was 43, misses her kids occasionally as she swings on her trapeze. She doesn't miss washing dishes as she flies through the air with the breeze in her hair. Devil may care, 'cause you can't have everything. Everything, everything, no you can't. You can't have everything. Everything. Can you, Suzanne? She fell pretty hard for a carny on the train to come Cary, where she wished she wasn't married. Just for a night, 'cause she couldn't resist when he kissed her. Just a little longer, just a little longer. Then she knew was right, but you can't have everything. Everything, everything, no you can't. You can't have everything. Everything. Can you, Suzanne? But sometimes it's the dreams that get you through. All the hardest things you have to do. Suzanne came back home from the circus when she was 44, knowing she'd miss her family more. She let go, fell to the floor. She'll never like washing dishes, but at night when no one's there, she'll feel the breeze in her hair. Devil may care, 'cause you can't have everything. Everything, everything, no you can't. You can't have everything. Everything. Can you, Suzanne? You can't have everything. 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 No, you can't. You can't have everything. Everything. Can you, Suzanne?
Oh my goodness. That is beautiful. Oh, I love that song. My goodness. So if folks are looking for that song, it's called Suzanne.
It's called Suzanne. It's on an album called Pink Umbrella.
Okay.
And you can find it on iTunes and CD Baby and
Oh, I love it.
wherever you look for music these days.
I've never heard that one. I absolutely love it. Wow. Thank you for sharing that. So fun. I think I smiled like 11 times. So good. Well, thank you for being here. This was really, really fun. And
Thank you for having me.
A lot of nuggets of wisdom. Is there anything, I know you've already shared a lot, is there anything that you know, for the songwriters listening, again, who may be newer or needing a little inspiration, if there was one thing you could share with them to keep going, or kind of an attitude to have, or any wisdom?
Sure. I think that one of the biggest pieces of advice or inspiration that I got, I think that, you know, if you're really into the world of songwriting and you're into the craft and you're surrounding yourself with other writers, it's really easy sometimes to feel discouraged if you don't feel like you're writing what you want to, or you don't feel like you're saying what you want to, or if you're being heard the way that you want to. And I remember being in a position at a contest that I was in at Rocky Mountain Folks Festival one year, and it was the first year that I was in a contest where I was going to be playing for myself, accompanying myself, which was a new thing for me because I didn't grow up playing instruments. And I was freaking out and scared and just kind of having meltdown after meltdown for an entire week before the contest. I was so nervous about it. And I ran into Mary Gaucher, and she asked me, she said, you look upset. You look like something's going on. Is there anything I can do to help you? And I just kind of unloaded on her about all my fears and all of my insecurities and everything that I was worried about the contest. And she looked at me and she said, I'm going to tell you something. She said, you're not here to be the best guitar player. You're not here to be the best singer. You're not even here to be the best songwriter. She said, you're here to sing the song that only you can sing. And if you do that, and you do it from your heart, the song is going to go where it needs to go. It's going to reach the people it needs to reach. And that is your only responsibility, is to sing it and to write it and to sing it. And for me, when I'm feeling discouraged or when I'm feeling uninspired, and I get down on myself about what I'm not good at or what I could be better at, I always come back to that. And I think that that's a really motivating thing to me, to figure out, what is that song that only I can sing? That's a really motivating factor when I sit down to write, to try to figure out how to get to the root of my own voice and my own truths. And I think as long as I'm striving to do that, I stay pretty motivated. Yeah. So I don't know if that helps or not, but those would be my parting words.
That's perfect. Exactly. Oh, I love that. Thank you so much. That's so great. If you want to know more about Cary, go to carycooper.com. I'll put it in the show notes. And this was really, really fun. Awesome. And I hope I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, I hope so. Okay. Bye.
Bye. Thanks so much for joining us. If you know someone who would enjoy or benefit from this podcast, please share it with them. Thanks so much. Much love.